Zinikwa Mhlaba has been listening to those testimonies throughout the morning and joins me now live from Parktown, Johannesburg. Zinikwa, very good afternoon to you. Some harrowing accounts of what transpired, what was seen, and the composition of bodies, and really gruesome information coming out of those testimonies.
Well, I can tell you, Mpho, that the first 2 days of the campaign, the commission has been focused in zooming into the state of that building itself. However, today we got an opportunity to zoom inside the building itself in terms of the report which was compiled by the South African Police Service, especially through the lens of a crime scene investigator who took about 800 pictures today. So the chunk of today was spent on combing and probing and analyzing those pictures, but also the gentleman himself explaining to us why he took each and every picture and what story he was trying to tell. So that was day 2 of this particular commission, which is located here in Parktown, Johannesburg. But some of the key stakeholders who were very much involved in that tragedy when it unfolded in August was SERI. I'm joined now by Nomzamo, Zondo, who's from SERI, to give us a sense of what are the key takeaways as far as SERI is concerned of the first 2 days. Ms. Zondo, thank you very much for your time. SERI was very much involved in engagements when that fire broke out. The commission has started, which seeks to probe what actually caused that fire. What's your reaction now following the first 2 days of this commission?
Look, I think the one thing that's concerning for us, and was concerning at the time of the fire, was the potential for victim blaming. And unfortunately, in the last 2 days, what we've heard were that the rooms were too small, that there was extension cords that went under beds. We've heard, for instance, that the conditions in the building are what made it possible for people to pass away. And so we are interested to hear, about the real causes, firstly, of the fire, and to what made it impossible for the city, who was the owner, and the municipal authority to manage the building in order for us to understand how we got here today. And I think one of the things that's concerning for us beyond that is that all of us have been here. I was here for a little bit yesterday. I spent most of today here. In fact, I was here the whole day. But I have not seen a single victim, neither those who lost loved ones, someone injured, or someone who's been displaced by the fire. And it's been interesting to us because the terms of reference actually framed it in a way that this is about these people, and it counted all of them.
So let's deal with that issue of blame gaming, as you're suggesting that, because you are correct. The past 2 days have been sharing the state of the building and how some of the rooms were repurposed. Some were turned into spaza shops. So one will say maybe it makes sense that the victims themselves can be held accountable, because those are the people who instilled steel gates on the rooms, on the exit doors. That's the reality according to the pictures and evidence that's been shared here. So to what extent should we be putting a blame, or should we be holding them accountable for those smaller problems?
Look, so I think the first thing that's important, the steel gates, is called burglar bars in South Africa. For anyone living in an informal settlement, living in an inner city building, their first concern is not a fire. Their first concern is their safety. The second concern is possibly crime. And I would understand why there would be then burglar bars. In fact, in South Africa, there's a phenomenon of even people putting gates in neighborhoods because their first concern is to keep criminals out of where they live. In a similar way that the Usiniso victims would have had the very same thing. They want to secure where they live. So that's the first thing. And that's why, for instance, it would have been interesting for us to have the victim sitting in the room to be able to say, yes, my room had a burglar guard, but I needed it because I was a single woman living with my children, and I wanted to keep them safe. And then, of course, there are questions saying there was spaza shops in the building. Yeah. We as SERI, during the COVID lockdown, engaged the Ministry of Human Settlements. And in engaging the Ministry of Human Settlements, we said inner city buildings are in effect vertical informal settlements. In any informal settlements, if you're going to go, you're going to find a spaza shop. In the very same way, if you go...
Sorry to cut, isn't that justifying then that those people and many other people must continue erecting those illegal informal settlements inside those buildings. Because at the end of the day, EMS was saying that that's what trapped them inside, because emergency services could not reach them on time, could not even help them because those burglar gates were locked.
So unfortunately, it's a painful reality of South Africa that people live in informal settlements, both outside the inner city and in the inner city. For instance, the reason why SERI is in this commission is because we represent the Inner City Federation. The Inner City Federation has engaged the state, has attempted to engage the state about the conditions of inner city buildings. And in those engagements, one of the primary things would have been what is safe and what is not safe. It would have been access to basic services. It would have been whether there's fire mitigation practices for the community. In fact, yesterday when we sat here and we had an expert from EMS explain that they have PEER, which is a program where they reach out to residents of inner city buildings and train them in mitigating fire. And we are here because this Inner City Federation was surprised that this thing exists, but they have members in over 30 buildings in the inner city of Joburg. And if the program exists, how is it possible that they've never come across it? So in the very same way, if the concern is people are living in informal settlements in the city, then you address the inner city housing crisis. Then you make housing options that are formal, that are safe, that are secure, with access to basic services available to people.
Let me come in there, Ms. Nomzamo. Let's talk about that point that witnesses are not here yet. Have you engaged the commission about the absence of the victims themselves, and did they give you anything, or are you still planning to engage them on this matter?
So the victims are represented. They are represented by Norton Rose South Africa. Norton Rose South Africa, for instance, yesterday approached the commission to ask for a postponement, and then there was an agreement reached. That's why after every witness, the evidence leader gives an undertaking that the commission will allow parties in the commission to cross-examine those people. I believe, for instance, that they will engage or have engaged, possibly have engaged. I don't know this because I act for SERI. I'm here on behalf of SERI and we act for the Inner City Federation about the participation of the victims. For instance, people might be aware that in the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, not only were the victims was their participation facilitated, but it was paid for by the Department of Justice. It was a way to make sure that the commission centers their experience, but also a way to make sure that at the end of the day, we're not here talking about buildings. We're here talking about lives. We're talking about lives that have been lost. We're talking about lives that have been, destroyed, and not even, I wouldn't feel like destroyed is the right term, but really have been messed about by what happened with this fire. It would be important to have those people here in the room to hear for themselves firsthand what happened, and those who have information to come forward and provide that information.
Just one last question there, ma'am. Do you perhaps know, do you have any idea in terms of what happened to those victims who were coming from other countries in terms of managing to, to transport their loved one back home? Do you have any update on that?
So what I'm aware, I think in a brief engagement that we had with some of the victims, is that the police informed them that over 30 deceased people have not been identified. We actually met one gentleman who had 4 young men in his room. All those 4 young men did not make it out of the fire. One of them is his younger brother. I think two others are blood brothers and friends of his. And he has tried to attend to in Diepkloof, has taken a family member of the 2 brothers to Diepkloof, and they've been informed that the mothers of those people need to share DNA in order for them to be identified. And so even though he's available as a brother, even though a sister of the 2 other brothers is available, they haven't been assisted. And
So sorry to cut you, so are you saying to this day, that's still the case, to this day?
Well, so the conversation that I had was a conversation that happened on Monday. Today is Friday. I don't know what has changed since then, but what I do know is that there isn't a centralized point of assistance for the victims, and it makes it impossible to think that in the 4 days, miraculously, those 30 bodies would have been identified.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time. That's Nomzamo, Zondo. They are representing SERI, giving us a sense of how they're finding these proceedings. It's day 2. As she said, that we spent the chunk of the day coming through the pictures, about 800 of them, that seek to tell the story of what happened when SAPS got to the scene in August 31st. 70 people lost their lives, with several others injured. So that's it from us for the day. Paul, it's back to you in Johannesburg.